more advocacy on the digital switchover project as the ministerial task force Philip has been laid to rest at Windsor Castle in a ceremony attended by few people in line with COVID-19 protocols.
On business news tonight, Nigerian Port Authority resumes electronic call-up for ticketing for inbound and outbound cargoes at the Lagos Port Complex after suspension of 2-day strike by maritime workers.
And on sports news, Chelsea ends Manchester City's quest for a historic quadruple of trophies as Hakim Ziyech's goal takes the Blues to the FA Cup final.
It's a tale of anguish and despair as residents of Damascus, a town in Borno which came under attack by Boko Haram insurgents recently, have been recounting their experience during the invasion, which left at least 12 people dead. The incident, which was the 6th in 2 weeks, recorded the most casualty figures. Also, about 100,000 people have been displaced from the community, according to the state governor who has visited the town. Governor Babagana Zulum is appealing for adequate attention to be given to troops fighting the insurgents.
Damasak, a border town in Moba local government area of Borno State, was liberated from the hold of the insurgents in 2017. But it appears the insurgents have not given up on the town. In 2020, a UN helicopter was shot in Damasak, barely managing to fly to safety. In a recent attack, a UN food storage and other facilities were destroyed by the insurgents. According to villagers' accounts, the insurgents had declared upon arrival that none will be hurt.
What we saw with our eyes on that day, they entered around 4 p.m. until daybreak. We were hearing them giving instruction on the houses to be burnt. We heard everything until they finished and left. And the gunshot in the town was so much we didn't know where to hide. We buried up to 12 people. There are a lot of our people by the riverbank at the Niger border. It's just about 5 minutes drive from here. They were speaking Hausa, Shua, Kanuri and Fulani languages. They told us not to run, that they won't touch us. Those that died were killed by stray bullets. They were not direct targets.
My daughter's husband has been abducted. They came in around 4 p.m. and started shooting. My son-in-law is a civilian JTF member. They made him show them some selected houses belonging to their targets, which they burnt one by one. Then they still took him away. Until this day, we haven't heard anything about him.
Before the attack, about 200,000 civilians lived in Damasak. Half of that population has now fled to Niger for safety. They joined about 126,000 people already taking refuge there. Just a few of the villagers have, however, mustered courage to return.
We spent 2 days in the bush. We left because the gunshots became unbearable. We left with our children to Gamari, then to Niger Republic. Some of those who could not find a place to stay are just sitting by the roadside as I speak.
Governor Babagana Zulum, however, is worried about the repeated attacks on Damasak. He wants the federal government to intervene and save the town from falling again.
We can't afford to see another humanitarian situation that will compound the existing situation that we have. This town has a population of about 200,000 population. The Nigerian government is tired of supporting them. So we are pleading to the Nigerian army, we are pleading to the federal government to ensure provision of adequate protection to this very important community so that they can live in peace and harmony.
According to him, the continued attacks would worsen displacement, which strains the Nigerian government, currently catering to about 126,000 Borno residents.
Meanwhile, the General Overseer of the Redeemed Christian Church of God, Pastor Enoch Adeboye, is reaffirming his belief in the power of prayer to rid the country of all forms of crime. Pastor Adeboye, who said this when he visited the governor of Ekiti State, condemned the recent abduction of a traditional ruler in the state and the shooting of another monarch. He says it's alarming that criminal elements now have no regard for the traditional institution.
I want to assure you, sir, that we are praying for this state. We are praying for this state because we are concerned that even the institution of ownership is no longer considered sacred by these bandits. For a Yoruba boy like myself, that is heart-rending. And I can assure you we are crying to the Lord of hosts, the one who has never lost a war, that he will fight this battle for us. Amen. And give us victory very soon. Because definitely we are fighting a war that we cannot win by human wisdom or human ability. Because the elders have a saying that you can never be as wise as someone who has laid an ambush for you. Because the one who's laid the ambush must have studied your movements, he knows your routes and routines, and it takes God to rescue you from somebody who has laid an ambush for you. But there is a God who can ambush the ambusher.
The host, Governor Kayode Fayemi, described the visit as a blessing to Ekiti State, saying Nigerians place premium on the prayers of righteous minds.
As our Father in the Lord, who has always been enthusiastically and prayerfully supporting our work in the state, can only be a blessing to us at this critical moment in our country. We are confronted with a variety of challenges, and as you have rightly pointed out, sir, human perfection alone cannot address these issues. It's God's ingenuity, it's God's love, and God's passion that can help us.
It's freedom for 3 women kidnapped in Oyo State earlier this week, as the State Police Command says it has secured their release. The victims are Abosede Adebayo, Bola Ogunrinde, and Theresa Okeowo, who were kidnapped at Onikwe in Oluyole local government area of the state. The Commissioner of Police describes their rescue as another remarkable achievement in the command's fight against crime and criminality. According to the state police boss, their release is the result of pressure and intelligence from police in partnership with local hunters and vigilantes who combed the suspected location in search of the victims before recording the breakthrough. A former senator representing Kaduna Central Senatorial District, Shehu Sani, has been speaking on the farmer herders crisis in the country, asking both states and the federal government to ensure that criminal herders are prosecuted and brought to justice. While condemning ethnic profiling of the Fulani people, Senator Sani also asked the group not to defend any criminal herder on the basis of ethnicity. He stated this at a meeting with a coalition of Fulani youth organizations in the nation's capital, Abuja.
You cannot say every Fulani man is a bandit, every Fulani man is a killer headsman, every Fulani man is a criminal. It is wrong for you to say that. That amounts to stigmatization of the Fulani people. But it is also wrong for any of you to defend the acts of criminality of people from your own ethnic group. If they veer off law and order and perpetrate or perpetuate acts of criminality, you must not only distance yourself from them, you must ensure that they are being prosecuted. I assure you that any campaign which you are going to be involved in that will entail ending these killings, the violence, and also ensuring that people who have veered off and are engaged in acts of criminality are brought to justice. You have to battle the external forces that are striving to destroy your own ethnic nationality by profiling and stigmatization. You also have to fight your internal forces by Fulanis who are engaged in acts of criminality, banditry, killing farmers, displacing people. So the battle for you will both outward and inward, and you must continue to do it. And for those who are also profiling you, actually need to apologize to you.
From security to legal matters now, the plan by the Judiciary Staff Union of Nigeria to embark on a nationwide peaceful protest on Monday is gathering momentum as more state chapters of the Nigeria Bar Association are pledging to support the action. The latest are the Plateau and Anambra state chapters of the Bar Association. The workers are demanding financial autonomy for the judiciary across the states of the Federation.
In a display of solidarity, members of two different associations, but bonded by activities in the courts of Plateau State, are on the streets of Jos, the state capital. Bearing placards with several inscriptions, they marched to the government house to register their demands. Beyond the agitation for financial autonomy, the state chapter of the association have other demands.
About 10 courts has been shut down for lack of manpower. The issue of overhead costs for the judiciary on the plateau, 8 months now, the government have not done anything.
There was a time I know on the plateau, our own judges have no record book. Yes. There's still a time that in Carbon Court, once it rains, they will need to vacate.
They were not given access into the government house. Undeterred, they blocked the entrance until a government official attends to them.
Thank you, sir. We are now aware of the situation, and I assure you we'll take steps to ensure that immediate remedy is given. So take it from us, we are committed to implementation of autonomy for the judiciary and the legislature.
In Anambra, the state chapter of the NBA is pledging to join forces with the union by taking to the streets on Monday to demand action from the state government for financial autonomy for the judiciary.
The attention of His Excellency the Executive Governor is drawn to the rot and dilapidating state of infrastructure in the Anambra State Judiciary. Many high courts where judges sit are in their streets. It has now become a regular practice in many courts in Anambra State for judges and lawyers to unrobe themselves due to the non-conducive and unbearable state of environment where they sit.
The union is hoping that the planned action will compel the state governors to begin the needed reform for the judiciary in their states and subsequently end the 2 weeks industrial action.
In part two, after the break, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu calls for increased advocacy on the digital switchover project as the ministerial task force seeks the state government's cooperation for a seamless process. Stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Residents of Damasak narrate ordeal during attack by Boko Haram insurgents on their community. Governor Zulum appeals for more federal support to prevent recurring attacks. More state chapters of the Nigerian Bar Association set to join judicial workers in protest for financial autonomy on Monday. Governor Sanwo-Olu calls for increased advocacy on the digital switchover project as the ministerial task force seeks the state government's cooperation for a seamless process. And the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, has been laid to rest at Windsor Castle in a ceremony attended by few people in line with COVID-19 rules. As Lagos State prepares to exit the analog mode of broadcasting on April the 29th, the Minister of Information and Culture, Mr. Lai Mohammed, has stressed the need for the state to be on the same wavelength with the federal government. The minister said this today when the ministerial task force of the federal ministry visited Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu at the Lagos House Marina.
The decision to transit from analog to digital television followed a treaty agreement that was signed at the Regional Radio Communications Conference in Switzerland way back in 2013. And the idea was that to usher in all digital terrestrial broadcasting service for sound and television by target date then of 2015. This transition is actually aimed at creating a more equitable, just and people-oriented information society which will connect underserved populations and remote communities, thereby bridging the digital divide. Your Excellency, analog broadcasting provides a limited choice of programming, like I explained, that due to restricted bandwidth, and it is no longer efficient technology. The same transmission channel used to broadcast a single analog program can carry a multiplex of up to 20 digital programs of equivalent quality.
For the governor, the initiative is a step in the right direction for broadcasting, but he stressed the need for advocacy so that more Nigerians will be aware and buy into the project.
As a forward-looking state, we are in partnership where we see it as bringing the future to our citizens. So we do not have a problem with it at all. And for you to say that even for us as a state, we have been developing what we call a metropolitan fiber optics, where for the future, we still see, fiber connectivity as one of the solutions, where the citizens can have access to cheaper data, and cheaper means of communication. So it speaks to our own statewide strategy around providing the capability, the backbone for communication and information technology.
The Lagos State Judicial Panel on Restitution for Victims of SARS and Other Related Matters listened yet again to the testimony of Sara Ibrahim, one of the coordinators of the End SARS protest today. Sara testified that she witnessed soldiers policemen later shoot and kill innocent protesters at the Lekki toll gate on the 9th of October the 20th, 2020. Our correspondent, Shola Shoyele, has the rest of the story.
The Lagos State Judicial Panel on Restitution for Victims of SARS and Other Related Matters is racing against time. It got a 3-month extension to complete hearing and give decisions in the 235 petitions it received from the public. Infographics obtained by Channels Television from the panel secretariat showed that of the 235 petitions it received, there are 14 cases related to the Lekki shooting of October 20, 2020. Sara Ibrahim is testifying in one of the 14 cases. At a previous sitting, Sara, who described herself as a freelance auditor, had told the panel that she was at the protest ground in Lekki every day, coordinating some of the activities, and she was an eyewitness to the incident of the night of October 20. Led in evidence by her counsel Yinka Olumide Fushika SAN, Sara continued her testimony of the events of the night. She tendered 2 flash drives to demonstrate that the Lekki Concession Company had more cameras on ground on the night of the incident to show what really happened during the Lekki shooting.
We have here pictures of cameras that are at the toll gates, and not just the one camera footage submitted to the panel by the LCC. So if you see here, we had 3 drones flying that particular day of Lekki massacre. From the drone videos, there was 2 armed army officials under this particular toll. So this is the 7th toll by your right. There is a camera here. So this particular camera, there were 2 army men standing here, which from the videos I would later present would be seen. Also, there are cameras directly behind, close to the power plant or the generator. If the footages from this camera is presented, it would show that LCC staffs were present that night, because it shows directly into the LCC office. So this camera shows directly towards Oriental Hotel, where the army came from, and where they parked 3 vans. One of the vans later moved towards the protesters, while 2 of the vans stayed there. And these 2 vans were the vans that conveyed bodies of protesters, which I will show you in another video. There is a camera directly on the top of Oriental, that same type of camera.
Well, as LCC is not...
If LCC insists that they cannot find the camera, then I suggest we ask Oriental Hotel for their own cameras.
Sara pointed out over 5 different cameras, most of which she says has now been removed. When asked if she could authenticate her pictures, here's what she said.
We included every picture, every video, every statement into the google.com drive. So
into?
The google.com's drive. So what the Google Drive does is that it takes that image or video and uses the satellite to show the location, date and time.
Sara went on to give a very lengthy narration of how soldiers shot at protesters and even the activities of the DPO and some men of the Maroko police station, who she claims also shot at protesters. The panel admitted in evidence some bullets she said she picked from the floor during the shooting.
Yeah.
Where's the live one?
This is the live one.
Okay.
Following her testimony that the hospital subsequently refused to release information about some of the protesters receiving treatment after the Lekki tollgate shooting, the panel granted the request of her lawyer to summon the Director of Hospital Administration and HR of the Lagos State University Teaching Hospital, LASUT, Mr. K.F. Bajumo, who allegedly issued a memo prohibiting his staff from giving out information on the Lekki victims. On the next adjourned date, the witness will play more of the videos she gathered on the night of the incident as further proof of a narration of the event of October 20, 2020. Shola Sheyeli, Channels Television.
Despite the concerns raised by the Christian Association of Nigeria on the proposed bill on religious discrimination prohibition, the sponsor of the bill, Sara Abdullahi, is insisting that it will address issues of religious acrimony. The bill seeks to provide a mechanism for enforcing certain provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination, amongst others. But Honorable Abdullahi told Channels Television that his intentions are pure and a public hearing will be held to enrich the proposed legislation.
If you don't come to the table to discuss some of these issues, you're not likely going to have a solution to them. And if they have become so overwhelming, if they've been dragging us back for quite a while now, why don't we seize this opportunity to talk about it? We've come with a proposal. Of course, the trigger has been the lingering hijab issue. But really and truly, what we are trying to achieve is beyond hijab. We termed it religious discrimination, prohibition, and prevention bill. So it's really beyond hijab. And I've said it over and over that discrimination is could actually be circumstantial. You could have a Muslim in a Christian-dominated environment that will feel discriminated against. And vice versa, you could have a Christian in a Muslim-dominated environment that will feel discriminated against. And so what we are coming up with is not a complete document yet, it's a work in progress. And if we are abreast with the legislative process, we'll take note of the fact that we're going to get to a public hearing state where the public will have the opportunity to actually enrich the proposal.
When the news at 10 returns, we have more stories. Plus, Nigerian Ports Authority resumes electronic call-up ticketing for inbound and outbound cargoes at the Lagos ports after suspension of 2-day strike by maritime workers. That's on Business News. Join us again. The Taraba State Governor, Darius Ishaku, has been reacting to reports on the high cost of food items in the country, blaming it all on the insecurity situation. He was speaking after inaugurating road projects in Delta State, where he asked Governor Ifeanyi Okowa to keep up the good work of improving infrastructure and creating better opportunities for the people.
The rains that should be received as showers of blessings is a discomfort to commuters and transporters as roads get flooded, causing traffic nightmare and negatively impacting businesses that was once the tale of Okpanam Road in Delta State. Like Okpanam Road, Old Jesus Saves Road had its share of similar trouble due to lack of proper drainage. It's now a different story as both the Jesus Saves and Okpanam roads were a new look, which is why the Delta State Governor, Ifeanyi Okowa, and his guest, Darius Ishaku of Taraba State, are here to formally inaugurate the roads to the delight of residents.
We commissioned smart water treatment plants in Okpanam for people of Okpanam to drink treated water free of diarrhea. My governor, we thank you.
Governor Ishaku proceeds to officially declare the roads open for public use.
The glory of God, in the name of Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
Other issues were thrown up during this visit, such as the rise in the prices of food items in the country, which Governor Ishaku blames on insecurity.
You cannot produce food when there is no security. All our farmers are killed in the farm. Just last week, I have several people, more than 20, they were killed in their farm, massacred by those who have guns, AK-47. We don't used to hear that to know about anything like a gun, let alone an AK-47. But now it's rampant everywhere across the nation. And so how do you expect somebody to farm?
For Governor Okoa, collaboration across subnational levels will help foster greater unity.
So it's important that states relate together to begin to build strength so that the voice that we hear will not continue to be that voice of division, but a voice that is strengthened by collaboration, a voice that is strengthened by greater interpersonal relationship between the leaders of various states.
These inaugurated roads connect many communities, and with the addition of stormwater drainage system, the problem of flooding will now be a thing of the past.
Nigeria loses 80% gum arabic production, and that's according to the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Mr. Sabo Nanono. The activities of Boko Haram insurgents in the Sambisa forest has destroyed large hectares of gum arabic farmland, forcing Nigeria to drop to 4th position in the production. The Minister of Agriculture mentioned this in Yobe State at a capacity-building forum organized for farmers in northern Nigeria.
Gum arabic, known as acacia gum, is gotten from the acacia tree and used mostly in the production of inks, adhesives, and pharmaceuticals. In Nigeria, acacia trees are grown in large commercial quantities. Borno and Yobe states account for 80% of the total 2.5 million hectares of land used across 12 states to grow the gum trees. But the activities of the Boko Haram insurgents have negatively affected production, causing Nigeria to drop from 2nd to 4th position in the world among the nations that produce gum arabic.
You know that bulk of the gum arabic is in the wild, and Sambisa forest is virtually gum arabic. So right now people can't go to Sambisa or all these places that are dangerous, to go and harvest gum arabic. That is why we are insisting on organized planting.
Apart from insurgency, there are other factors which have affected gum production and necessitated capacity training from the government.
We in this area associate this setback mostly because of the encroachment of desert, reduction in the rainfall, the gum arabic value chain, particularly with respect to processing, harvesting of gum arabic, processing and nursery activities used to engage, a lot of women and youth. And these guys, these people reside in the rural communities. To add value to their lives, government has deemed it necessary to come up with this kind of training such that their capacities can be enhanced.
To improve production of gum arabic, considering its economic value to Nigeria, experts advise that government must ensure that more seedlings are produced to motivate the farmers, especially in the northeast, which is bedeviled by insecurity.
Artists and experts in the museum world, as well as advocates for the return of bronzes looted during the British invasion of Benin Kingdom in 1897, have been speaking on the recent announcement by some institutions of their intention to return these artifacts. The University of Aberdeen, some other institutions and countries have made commitments to give back Benin artifacts in their possession. Our correspondent, Jessica Olugusere, has more.
A recent report from the Evening Standard disclosed the Church of England's intention to return 2 Benin bronzes the late Ambrose Ali, governor of then Bendel, now Edo State, and the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, gifted Archbishop Robert Ramsey, former Archbishop of Canterbury, during his visit to Nigeria in 1982. The church, it reported, reached the decision following a request for information on Benin bronzes from the Digital Benin Project.
So the news from the Church of England is incredibly welcome.
A professor of contemporary archaeology at the University of Oxford and curator at Pitt Rivers Museum in the United Kingdom, Professor Dan Hicks, touches on what the announcement means to the restitution advocacy.
So part of the thing we learn from the Church of England's action is that we need transparency over what organisations like the Church, but also for example, the Vatican, which has a very large anthropology and archaeology collection. I think a lot of us in the museums world and elsewhere would like to see the inventories made public.
In Benin City, Edo State, South Nigeria, a member of the Digital Benin team explains what the project is about and its role in the Church's decision.
Digital Benin, it's a project that is designed or created to connect Benin objects that were looted in 1897 and globally circulated between 1897 and 1930. Digital Benin has reached out to a lot of museum collectors and individuals globally. And one cannot, for now, specifically comment on the response from, or the press from the Church of England, because there is no official reply to Digital Benin contact as we speak.
As momentum for restitution of Benin bronzes has been building, of chief concern are the thousands of Benin bronzes, including carved elephant tusks, ivory leopard statues, wooden heads and brass plaques looted in the 1897 British plunder of the Benin Kingdom. More than 900 reside at the British Museum in London, and thousands others are scattered around the world. Some institutions, including the University of Aberdeen, have recently committed to returning Benin bronzes in their collection. Key stakeholders and the Legacy Restoration Trust have plans in place, including the setting up of a pavilion to temporarily house the prized objects when repatriated, and their permanent home, the Edo Museum of West African Arts, EMOA.
You and I, for example, who need to go and get a visa, who need to go and pay tickets, very expensive one, fly to London to go and view these objects. So EMOA is making that possible for everybody, no matter which strata of the society you belong to.
Some, awed by the exquisiteness of design and skilled craftsmanship evident in the Benin bronzes, as well as their value, have often argued against their safety when returned to their original home. Professor Hicks, also author of the book The British Museums, underlines the irony in such ideas.
That misses, of course, the fact, the great irony, that these objects, these artworks, were looked after for more than 500 years in some cases, up until the point of the attack of the British. And that in that attack, the looting was not saving them. It was, the fact of the matter is that it was, say, 200 or so sailors and soldiers and administrators who took what they could for their personal gain.
Enoch Ogbebo is an artist. He knows his history and what the loss and return of the Benin bronzes mean not only for Edo people, but Nigeria as well.
This works what you call a repository of our knowledge systems, of our history, of our culture, of our traditions, and of who we are. And therefore, we must carry our head high. And we must also change our mentality to become as productive as our ancestors were, and achieve works which are far greater.
Edo still prides itself in its culture, tradition and art, creatively building fresh artworks to tell its stories. But the yearning for these long-lost artifacts, precious items, remains unquenchable, and the gaping void unfillable by anything else. Jessica Olubuse, Channels Television News.
Let's find out what's happening in the world of business with Teniola Shobowale.
Thanks a lot, Melinda. The Nigerian Ports Authority says it has resumed issuance of electronic call-up tickets for cargo operators at the AP Mola terminal after a dispute resolution between the terminal operator and the Maritime Workers Union. The union on Thursday halted activities at the terminal at the Lagos Port Complex over alleged breach of local content laws by the management of APM Terminal and other international oil companies, forcing the Port Authority to suspend issuance of tickets to APMT-bound cargoes. The MPA added that operations are going smoothly and the management is working to ensure that the e-caller platform is perfected. The Securities and Exchange Commission has been speaking about its recent warning to indigenous investment tech platforms over offering foreign securities to Nigerians. According to the head office of the chief economist at the Commission, Mr. Okiomenu, SEC has supported in the registration of fintech companies and do things the right way. He was speaking today during our business program, Capital Market.
Some players, started, making these foreign stocks available for domestic investors without going through the approval process of the SEC. The capital market is a regulated market. No player, no entity can go into the market, set up shop without going through the necessary approval process. These approvals are for investor protection. They are to curb illegal activity. They are to ensure that we have fit and proper people in the market. So the SEC has the responsibility to do all this. The SEC has the responsibility to, regulate a market that is fair to all. And when players come into the market without going through the proper channels, then it's a problem. So the SEC identified this and just sought to let everyone know what to do, the right thing to do.
Meanwhile, the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Shippers Council, Mr. Hassan Bello, says that Nigerian ports achieved 70% digitization in the first quarter of 2021, lower than the 90% target set by the Council. A statement by the Council boss explains that the move to achieve full digitization will help reduce delays, human traffic, revenue leakages, corruption, and diversion of money. It adds that with the 70% achieved, the Council is still pushing to actualize the target through partnerships with shipping companies and terminal operators. The Council stressed that going digital would give Nigeria's ports an edge over other West African countries. And that's Business News tonight. I'm Teniola Shobowale. It's back to you, Melinda.
Many thanks, Teniola. To the international scene now. According to Johns Hopkins University, the number of people who have died worldwide in the COVID-19 pandemic has surpassed the 3 million mark, with 566,224. The United States has the highest number of fatalities, followed by Brazil, with 368,749, and Mexico with 211,693. The grim milestone comes a day after the head of the World Health Organization warned that the world was approaching the highest rate of infection so far. Almost 140 million cases have been recorded since the pandemic began. The Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, has been laid to rest in an intimate ceremony at the St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle. Due to the coronavirus restrictions, the Queen was seated alone and only 30 people were able to attend.
A minute's silence descended across the UK to mark the start of Prince Philip's funeral. Despite the public being told to stay away due to the COVID-19 pandemic, hundreds still gathered in the sun to pay their respects. Then, the Duke of Edinburgh's coffin travelled to St George's Chapel on a specially adapted Land Rover designed by the Prince himself. The children of Prince Philip and the Queen, Charles, Anne, Andrew and Edward, walked behind the hearse. Grandsons, Prince William and Prince Harry, also walked behind the coffin, separated by their cousin, Peter Phillips. While the 94-year-old Queen travelled to the chapel in a Bentley car. Inside the chapel, the service was simple and somber. There was no sermon at Prince Philip's request. The service was characterized by select hymns from a reduced choir of 4, Bible readings and prayers of faith and hope for the royal family.
For his resolute faith and loyalty, for his high sense of duty and integrity, for his life of service to the nation and Commonwealth.
With only 30 people in attendance, the congregation wore masks and was socially distanced in line with COVID-19 rules, with the Queen seated alone. Prince Philip was placed in the vault alongside the remains of 24 other royals, including 3 kings of England. The Duke of Edinburgh, who was been by his wife's side throughout her record-breaking 69-year reign, died peacefully at the age of 99 at Windsor Castle.
For the latest in the world of sports, here is Kayode Okikiolu.
Well, thanks, Melinda, and you're welcome to Sports News. The Super Falcons of Nigeria have dropped from 37th to 38th in the latest FIFA Women's World Ranking for the month of April. The Super Falcons dropped 6.34 points despite winning the Invitational Turkish Women's Cup in Antalya in February. The 9-time African champions remain number 1 in Africa, though, with Cameroon, South Africa, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Tunisia, Morocco, Mali, Algeria and Senegal completing the top 10. The next FIFA Women's World Ranking will be published on June the 25th. And to club football, Chelsea has ended Manchester City's hopes of winning a historic quadruple after beating Pep Guardiola's side 1-0 in a closely fought FA Cup semi-final at Wembley. Chelsea had a well-deserved victory given to them when Hakim Ziyech slid home Timo Werner's pass in the 55th minute to set up an FA Cup final against either Leicester City or Southampton. Chelsea manager Thomas Tuchel can now reflect on a hugely satisfying week as his impressive start at Stamford Bridge gathers momentum. Meanwhile, a once-in-a-lifetime signed jersey worn by late football great Diego Maradona in his first ever World Cup match has hit the auction block with the potential to fetch a supersized purse equal to his enormous fame. The blue and white striped jersey, which Maradona wore in his World Cup debut in a group stage match against Belgium in 1982, featured his signature on front in black ink and is expected to pull in an estimated $150,000 to $250,000. Interest in Maradona's souvenirs erupted after his death, with the shirt he wore in the infamous 1986 World Cup quarter-final match against England, where he scored his Hand of God goal worth an estimated $2 million. And that's Sports News for tonight. I'm Kairo Kikulu. It's back to Melinda and News at 10.
Many thanks, Kaide. And the main news again. Residents of Damascus today narrated their ordeal during a recent attack by Boko Haram insurgents on their community. This came as Governor Babagana Zulum, who paid a visit to the town following the incident, appealed for more federal support to prevent recurring attacks there. Also today, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu called for increased advocacy on the digital switchover project as the ministerial task force visited him in Lagos to seek the state government's cooperation for a seamless exercise. And the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, was today laid to rest at the Windsor Castle in a ceremony attended by few people in line with COVID-19 protocols. That's the news at 10 tonight. On behalf of the team, good night.